Generations Bank has been serving the financial needs of the Finger Lakes region since 1870. Generations combines the best of modern banking with dedication to the local community. Visit them at mygenbank.com. Generations Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you as always. Going to be a pretty cool episode coming out of the All-Star break. We'll share our thoughts quick on that. I think everything that probably has been said so far, but we haven't been able to express it ourselves. We got some trade deadline stuff to get to as well before we get to the second half of the season officially. Kyle, good seeing you. How's the week been for you so far? It's been a quote-unquote quiet week because of the All-Star break, which I'm sure you're kind of taking a little bit of advantage of, obviously, to reset on your end.
Yeah, definitely been quiet. I think I'm actually ready for games to start today, but of course we have to wait one more day.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously when the second half gets going, things are going to be nonstop. And then September's going to be here before we know it, and a lot of other sports starting. So, yeah, this is like the last official time off that I really get. So, yeah, it's been a good week.
Good. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We used to always usually have at least a couple of Thursday games, and then I think they got rid of that, I guess, probably right during COVID, I think it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, they usually had
yeah,
a few, and then they went all full back Friday.
Yeah. Which is pretty interesting because not to get too far into the weeds of what, we got the head for the Yankees and the Mets, but there were a couple of the numerous teams that actually have 4-game series to start the second half of the year, Friday through Monday. And I think if I were a player, I'd probably prefer Thursday through Sunday. Just give me an extra off day there maybe at the end. But hey, to each your own. Before we get fully into things, thank our sponsors, obviously Generations Bank, as you saw from the top, but also the Cuba Lake Wine Trail. From the first sip to the last look at the lake, the Cuba Lake Wine Trail will impress and inspire you. America's first wine trail. You truly choose your own path when you visit the winery, soak in the scenery, and make memorable moments with friends. You can plan your trip online at CubaWineTrail.com. And then Dewey's Tavern here in Seneca Falls, within walking distance from downtown, just across the Bridge Street Bridge. Quick draw lottery, 19 televisions for all your sporting needs. Great food and lunch for dinner as well. Bocce, pool, and dart leagues. Check them out online at Dewey'sThirdWard.com. So, before we get into that trade deadline stuff, Kyle, do want to get a couple thoughts from you here. The All-Star break. Personally, to me, felt like most of the storylines surrounding the weekend, or they call it weekend, it's really weird because it's, the quote-unquote main stuff is still on Monday, Tuesday, obviously. But obviously All-Star weekend now encompasses from Friday through that Tuesday. Felt like most of the headlines, unfortunately, though, came from off-the-field stuff. Even though I guess one of the things was on the field. But what were your kind of thoughts on this All-Star break? I personally thought the entertainment element of it was pretty good this year when they did, like, for example, the player intros and stuff like that. But other than that, it seemed kind of rougher than usual.
Yeah, I still think the MLB All-Star, I guess, week is still better than any other sports All-Star festivities. The Home Run Derby was great, especially the ending. I mean, Bobby Witt Jr. goes off the wall, almost ties it. But then there were some surprises mixed in as for, like, the actual Derby. Like, Pete Alonso really struggled. Two-time champ. Didn't look like a two-time champ. Gunnar Henderson didn't look good. I don't know. It was just some surprising things happened in the Derby, but still pretty good. And then the All-Star game is good as always, too, because they're actually playing the real game. It's not, they don't back off. They're still throwing just as hard, still trying to get hits. So I always enjoy it. Juan Soto looked good.
Yeah.
Of course. Aaron Judge, he was just out there. It was cool. So, yeah, I liked what I saw, and I am ready to get back to real baseball, though.
I liked the hats for the All-Star game this year. I actually did, but the jerseys themselves, woof. Slow pitch softball style again this year. They gotta go back to the individual
Yeah.
jerseys. I think, man, it was pretty rough on the eyes this year. I'd say. Don't know if you feel the same way, but
Yeah, I
it
definitely
was
agree.
rough.
They got to go back to wearing their actual jerseys. I think it seems like everyone's in favor for that. I know Rob Manfred kind of spoke about that Monday, that they're going to look into doing it, and I hope they do because
Yeah.
I think the players are down for it too. And you saw, I don't know if you saw the tweet, but Marcus Stroman went to Twitter and said, "Let me design the jerseys next year because that's how bad they were."
Anything can be better than what they've been going with here.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the Yankees and the Mets here. I actually want to start with the Mets because the Yankees, I think, have an easier discussion here as we approach the trade deadline, which is what the bulk of what we're going to talk about today really kind of stems into. The Mets, we talked about it last week, right? Going into this All-Star game and All-Star break, the hottest team in baseball. Find themselves 3 games above 500 now, 12 and a half back in the division, but thrust right into the middle of what is despite what the records indicate, a hotly contested NL wild card race. A few weeks ago, talk of them being sellers at the deadline. Now it's kind of shifted. And for me personally, I view them as buyers. Is that what's going to fully happen for them? I don't know. I mean, we're still 12 days away from the trade deadline. It's July 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern when it happens. But, I view it as, they don't have any reason to sell necessarily. That being said, I'll tease it before I toss it over to you, Kyle. I do view them as probably not afraid to maybe move a quote-unquote bigger piece in order to make an improvement somewhere else. I'll get to that more in a second here. But for you, Kyle, as it stands right now with the Mets, do you view them as buyers or sellers as we approach the trade deadline in 12 days?
Normally, when you look at their record, you would think, they're not in a playoff spot and they're kind of a bit down. But yeah, like you said, the wild card race is wide open. Teams have played 90-ish, 95 games, and none of them have really taken off. So you figure this whole bunch is going to be there till the end. And I think the Mets will be one of those teams in the bunch that does make a move to improve. And why not? I mean, we've seen wild card teams before. I'm not saying they're going to, but we've seen wild card teams before make crazy runs of the World Series, or at least make it deep into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And
both teams last year.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there'd be really no reason to sell other than maybe a piece or two, like you said. But I think they will try to stay in it and not completely give up like we thought they may.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Like a month ago, they were 13 games out or so, and it looked really bad. Only the Rockies were worse, and here we are. You play some good weeks of baseball, and this is what you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will be interesting because when I was kind of doing the crunching of stuff today for my notes, I kind of view them as probably, in theory, going after the same guys as the Yankees in my mind. Only because I think, we've talked about it pretty much, a ton on here, so I don't want to bury this into the ground too much, right? But, both of us have a little bit of concern with the Mets pitching just overall, right? A lot of guys who, don't get me wrong, pitching great and doing good right now, but over the course of 162 games, can they keep that up, right? And we saw at the beginning of the year, not so much. During this run, certainly. But, they would probably be on the lookout for, say, a guy to say maybe help bolster that rotation just a little bit more than what we've seen so far from them. Maybe get another bullpen piece, obviously. And that kind of gets me to this point that I want to talk about with maybe they move on from a bigger piece or two. Now, I'm not saying any of these guys are going to go, but really the 4 main names when we were talking about them being sellers to kind of turn back the clock a little bit, right, were Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte, and Brandon Nimmo. Kind of the 4 main guys that would probably have been some form of on the move or at least been called upon to see what their availability is. Yeah. There is one guy in that bunch I still could see them moving on from, and that's Pete Alonso. Just given the contract situation and stuff like that. And I think, in my mind, and this is what may separate the Mets from really any other team getting, at the deadline, a bigger piece. And I don't know if, say, a team like the White Sox would do it, and you'll hear me talk about them a little bit more here, really, when we get to the Yankees more on this. You know, it's pretty apparent for Garrett Crochet, they want a, you know, like at least one top 5 pipeline guy and at least one star, or not star, but like MLB ready to go guy. And I'm not saying that it would be like a Pete Alonso swap type thing here, but like when a player like that's available on the selling team and you have a player like Alonso who, you know, it just seems like he's not going to be back no matter what next year, it makes all the sense in the world to maybe move on from him to a degree. And I get it. It sounds a bit sacrilegious. I'm talking about the Mets being a buyer and Pete Alonso is their kind of de facto power guy. But, like, he's kind of like one of the guys in this lineup right now that just seems still a little bit lost every now and then. You know, it's just one of those things where I view it as, could they use that chip and really improve in a spot where they know they need to improve? And I could see the Mets and I could see David Stearns doing that.
Yeah, I think the return for Alonso would be pretty good. That's why I think they would definitely consider it, and I think they are considering it right now. The team that I watch out for is the Houston Astros with him. I think they would definitely go all in on trying to acquire him. It would definitely help their lineup a ton. I mean, we know what Jose Abreu did in his time there. He didn't do anything. So I think that's the team to watch, but I think a lot of teams will be on him, and why not? And yeah, the thing with Pete Alonso is he's not really an average hitter. He's just power or nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the complete difference between him and Aaron Judge. It's so funny that those two were compared so much early on, but they're completely different. Aaron Judge hits for average and power. Pete Alonso doesn't. So that's why you see these slumps with Pete when he doesn't homer. He's not really contributing much.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what happens though.
Yeah. Now, I think, you know, to go a little bit further with this now with the Mets and the team, I mentioned I view them kind of doing similar moves to what the Yankees might do, and it's tough because, you know, we initially when we were targeting guys within the past month and a half about trade deadline stuff and stuff like that for these teams, right? Certain guys who perceived to be available on the market, maybe not so much anymore. Example, we talked about it a ton already. Jesus Luzardo for Miami. He's on the 60-day IL. He should be back at some point this year, but, you know, if you're a team buying, do you quote-unquote invest, right? But you'd be waiting maybe the whole month of August to get him, hypothetically. You never know. You know, I don't know if that's going to happen, which is why I feel like this market has shifted more towards, I don't like saying average guys in a way, but like, and I'll get more specific, I think, when we get to like the Yankees, because we can really pinpoint with them, you know, what we know that they'll probably be going after a little bit better than the Mets right now. But, you know, instead of, say, last year where the Rangers went out and got Max Scherzer from the Mets, right? And the Astros went out and got Verlander from the Mets. I don't know if anybody of that weight will be getting traded exactly this year. I guess it depends how you view guys like Release Robert, for example, and stuff like that. But, you know, it might be guys more like Cal Quantrill getting moved, right, for Colorado, who I could definitely see the Yankees and Mets probably being in on to some degree, right, where it's, you know, they're having, you know, career best years to date so far, and you can probably do a little bit of buy low, in a sense with them, even though you're buying, and could probably make some sort of improvement. I think that's where the Mets probably get a little bit better leverage in this situation, right? Only because, you know, you can kind of make things work a little bit better being in their position right now where, you know, the Yankees have a lot of these heavy-hitting prospects. And it's not to say that the Mets don't, right? I mean, I was doing this today, Kyle. You know how many stolen bases Luis Angel Acuna has this year for Syracuse?
I don't, but it's got to be quite a bit, right?
29. Which I get what some people say, well, like, Ellie's already at like 40 in the big league. Like, yeah, but that's also with like 2 weeks extra games compared to AAA guys. And Luis Angel did not get off to a good start to the year. Yeah. You know, could he be on the move? I don't know. I kind of view him in the same way that the Yankees probably view Yorbi Vivas in a way where I'm guessing you'd probably have to really give them something in return to force their hand to give up a guy like that in a sense. But, I just view the Mets as being a little bit better in the leverage department of these middle spot guys where, you can go out and make some sort of impact for them in this wild card hunt.
Yeah, I think you're kind of right on that path because there's just so many not good teams, but teams in the mix, it seems, compared to usual. Like, you look at the NL, and there's like 6 teams all clumped up behind the Mets within 3 games of each other that are going to be fighting for that third wild card spot. And with that extra wild card team, who's just going to want to completely sell off like that? And you look at the AL, it's a little different. I mean, you got the Royals, Astros right behind it. But even the Rays, who everyone thinks they're going to like sell a lot, they're only 5.5 out. I do think they're going to end up selling, but the point is, they're not that far out, and you still have like 65-ish, 70 games to go.
Yeah.
That's why it's going to be, I think it's going to actually come down in the final maybe few days for teams to even decide what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Because it keeps like staying put for so long.
And that was a little bit of the tricky part for me, and this might be a good spot to kind of transition over to the Yankees stuff a little bit where, and this also shows a big disparity right now in the Major League Baseball where I didn't look at teams being quote-unquote sellers if you had 40 wins. Now, the interesting part about that is I listed, here are the teams that don't have 40 wins. Angels, Marlins, Athletics, White Sox, and the Rockies. Those are the 4 main ones I looked at there. They all have 40 or below 40 wins. The interesting part, though, on that one is the next lowest is 47, and there's a bunch of teams at 47. And that goes into exactly what you talked about, Kyle, right? Because, I remember sitting here a couple months ago being like, I think the Cubs would probably be sellers at the deadline, except they're only 4 games below 500, and they're also technically right in this wild card hunt in the NL. So, perceived to be, maybe they're sellers, but you can't take that as truth as I could with these 4 other teams. So let's get into that Yankee element of it here. There is no contemplation, I think, this year. The Yankees will be buying at the deadline. We talked a little bit about last week. I have the 4 biggest needs for the Yankees as infield. I actually go relief pitching first before starting pitching, and then I think and this is the interesting part because we'll get to this as well here in a second, but I talked about it a little bit last week, and it ends up kind of coming to fruition, unfortunately, over the weekend. But I kind of put catching up there now for the Yankees as a potential need here at the deadline. Do you feel the same way with those kind of big 4 that I have in the need department for the Yankees?
Well, I like what Austin Wells has been doing, a little bit recently, but yeah, I think with Trevino out, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to look for catching. If you can find something in the market that, would fit well, I think you go ahead and do it. But I do think you have it listed properly. I think the corner infield has to be addressed. Yeah. And the relief pitching does come before starting their bullpen. They can just strengthen that up. And a lot of times in the postseason, you see teams just go to their bullpen and rely on the bullpen. So I think you got to load that up and depend on that a ton.
Yeah. So let's get into some guys here. And like I said, I think a lot of these guys translate to the Mets as well here. So I know one of the bigger names surrounding the Yankees right now, and we've actually talked about him a little bit on here, but Luis Rengifo for the Angels. He's played, I think, primarily third for the most part this year for them, but he's a utility guy, can play pretty much every infield position, can play corner outfield if you needed him to. However, his main issue is he's on the 10-day IL right now, but should be coming back here within this next handful of days or so. He's having a career year. Personally speaking, I don't have him all that high on my list, though, preferred-wise. It's just one of those things where I think maybe we talk about in other sports, just like the baggage you carry, but can you just trust Rengifo to go a full year? I can't really, to be fair, and I think that's why I kind of have him just ranked so low on my preferential scale in a way. Before you go, though, Kyle, I want to toss over to you with this. One name that I put in here, and it's kind of funny, he's also on the 10-day IL right now, but nearing a return, is a guy in Oakland who has bounced around now a couple teams here in the past couple years, but Yankee fans probably at least recognize him. That's also infielder Abraham Toro out in Oakland. I think I'd rather roll with Toro than Rengifo, but maybe that's just whatever. And I think, we go I think I'm going to save most of that Oakland talk here for just a second because I want to get to them more in a package here potentially. But if you had to maybe choose one of those two guys or maybe go off the board a little bit here, Kyle, who would you prefer to see?
Yeah, that's tough. Obviously Rengifo has the higher average, but he has more plate appearances. But yeah, I don't know. You don't know about either guy because they're having such a good year. They can come to New York and just fall down.
Yeah.
That's what happens a lot. Like IKF, for example, he started to get better towards the end, but I don't know. I think I'd roll with Rengifo still though.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And I think no matter if they were to choose either one, I think it wouldn't obviously require Spencer Jones as it would for. That's what scares me. A lot of these trades that the Yankees need to make to improve, I'm afraid teams are just going to literally point towards Spencer Jones or nothing, and that's what's scary about this. And a lot of times, Brian Cashman doesn't like to trade prospects, and even some of the other ones they have, like Clayton Beeter, he's hurt. He's going to be done for the year. Will Warren has a 6 ERA.
Yeah.
I mean, how are these guys having any trade value right now? Oswald Peraza is having his worst year ever. I mean, Vivas, is that the guy that's, I guess, going to be the front line guy that you're going to involve? I don't know. There's not a lot of options.
Hold on to those names, though, for a couple minutes, Kyle, because we're going to circle back to that element of things. The other name that's been linked to the Yankees a lot here recently is Tanner Scott from Miami. My main issue with him, and it's not a knock on him, essentially, but it's another lefty, and we just talked about it again last week. I would imagine, though, if the Yankees were to acquire him, one or two of the lefties they got would probably go get DFA'd in the process or sent away in the process even. One of those things where, I don't know, another name for me that pops up with Miami that I don't think many people are probably really realizing might be Anthony Bender. I know it's a scary name, but he's having a pretty good year as well, and he's a righty. Kind of answers a little bit of a, say, clog up at the left-handed side of things. But that could be a potential thing as well there.
Yeah, I think they're not going to really have to worry about the lefty problem, though, even before the deadline, because I think Scott Efros, when he is activated, I think Caleb Ferguson's already going to be the odd man for him.
Yeah.
But the way it sounds, they've already sent Efros back to AAA,
Yes.
so I'm wondering how long they're even going to keep him there. So, I don't know, lots of moving parts.
Now, here's where the Oakland package comes in a little bit here. I want to maybe drop this little nugget here with you. Maybe package up Toro with another pitcher, guy coming off the IL here in the next coming couple days, Ross Stripling, who Yankee fans might remember with his time in Toronto very recently.
Yeah.
Very possible. He's having a pretty good year and gives you a little bit of a flex type of deal, right? Can start if you need him to. Also can use him in relief. I think that flexibility is pretty nice. And with Oakland, you could probably honestly get him on the cheap, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, these are definitely cheaper options, because I don't think they're going to go and trade their top prospects. So I think they'd be able to get deals done for these types of guys. I'm not sure if these are going to really be the moves that sets them over.
Correct.
Like, are you really confident that these two moves are going to really push this team forward? I don't know. And I think a lot of fans would be pissed, to be honest.
A couple other teams here that I mentioned selling are the White Sox and the Rockies. I have 4 White Sox to keep an eye on here at the deadline involving the Yankees and also the Mets here. Second baseman Nicky Lopez, bouncing back nicely from a rough start to the year and actually rough past couple of years, was a former top prospect with Kansas City. 3 pitchers to keep an eye on with the White Sox. Obviously Garrett Crochet, which he will probably cost one of the heftier price tags as it stands right now. Guy having a nice bounce back year is Eric Fetty. Again, probably fits more in that Ross Stripling role. And also reliever John Brebbia to keep an eye on as well, who really made a name for himself the past couple of years in San Fran. Again, like you said, Kyle, maybe overall not quite the names you want there outside of Crochet, but this is a little bit of the issue to me where some of these teams are still within the race, and we won't know until probably not even maybe day before the deadline if these teams are going to sell or not sell.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting names down that I think are realistic based on what the Yankees normally do. They're not, we keep saying, they're not going to trade away the big guys. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to more secondary stuff, and they're going to acquire guys that are still going to do the job, but they're not going to be the high quality that we're all looking for.
Yeah.
And fans, I guess, including myself, are gonna have to understand that it's not always about trading away prospects. Sometimes guys aren't available, so
Yeah.
can't do anything about it.
Yeah. The one last team I'll bring up here are the Rockies. I have 3 targets here. I mentioned the catching thing, so I included him here. But Jacob Stallings is having a nice bounce back year in Colorado. His at a 254 average, which for him the past couple of years, that's pretty high. But for him and for the Yankees, especially for catching tandem that's been defensively one of, if not the worst all year, he's a defensive plus catcher. Would solve a pretty big hole immediately in a way, depending upon the Trevino exact severity here. I mentioned Cal Quantrill already. I think he'd be a pretty good piece. And then probably the second biggest name I have on here, at least in my mind, behind Crochet, for at least on the Rocky side of things, infielder Brendan Rodgers. It would be an interesting move, I think, especially on the Yankee side, if they were able to bring him in. Now, will it happen? I don't know. Probably not. Colorado.
Well, I like the other infielder.
McMahon.
But I know he's not. I know there's no
yeah, I don't
chance.
see them moving McMahon.
But that would be an amazing move if they somehow landed him. I know they're not gonna, but he's a stud.
I selfishly would love nothing more even though he signed an extension this offseason, but if they got Ezekiel Tovar from the Rockies, but that is a very big pipe dream. I think those are just some names that stands right now that we have to kind of at least keep in the lexicon of Yankees and Mets fans right now because like I said, there really are the only 4 teams that are like just super out of it right now that we know that they will be selling at the deadline. Now we've heard rumors of teams who are more than quote unquote more than likely to be selling, right? Tampa Bay, I've heard Toronto, but they probably aren't going to trade within the division for the Yankees. With the Yankees, obviously, I think they come into play, for the Mets. Could you imagine Isaac Paredes in a Met uniform? I actually like that versatility.
They keep linking him to the Yankees.
Really.
Yeah, Mark Feinstein of MLB.com.
Huh. I just don't see them.
That's just not a big
doing that deal.
I know it's not like it's just a weird move to me. I don't know.
Before we get to some roster updates and injury updates here, go throw some names at you, Kyle, here for the Yankees at the deadline and kind of get your reaction of if they were to be sent away. I want to start with these pipeline guys. Obviously, unless the Yankees can go out and get. I'm trying to think of what would be a good example here. Maybe like what Seattle did a couple years ago, get like Luis Castillo, somebody at that level. I can't imagine they'll move Spencer Jones.
Yeah, I think that's untouchable.
Right. So most of these guys maybe a couple are sniffing top 5, right? And there's a couple names here are top 5. But most of these guys are kind of scattered throughout the top 30 of the pipeline. So I do have Clayton Beeter on there. I know he's out for a while, but we've seen teams make trades for prospects who have been out. Could realistically see that in my mind. I know Peraza we've mentioned already, but where does he fit anyway with the Yankees right now? Don't exactly know. In a way, kind of the same thing with Everson Pereira.
Oh, yeah, he's done for the year too.
Yeah, but again, like I mentioned, these guys, we've seen teams take prospects who are just going to be out and just stash them, Here are a couple of these I would call, your fillers from, say, 10th on down in the pipeline. Ben Cowles having a really good year at Double-A. He's sitting, I think, 25th-ish right now in the pipeline for the Yankees per MLB.com. Same with Justin Lang, right-handed pitcher. I put Will Warren in there. Teams love pitchers no matter what. And then the 2 really bigger prospects who sit in the top 5 of the pipeline, George Lombard Jr. and Roderick Arias. Couple of the names, I think, at least pipeline-wise, to keep an eye on for the Yankees in the deadline.
Yeah, those are good options. And then I just looked again, and Justin Lang is out too for the season.
Oh, nice.
This is unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that. I know you have a point. Teams still trade for injured players, but obviously teams now are going to be more hesitant.
Not with that, yeah.
And so you have 3 guys right there that we just mentioned that are hurt, done for the year. Oswald Peraza has, I would assume, no value, but I still think some team would like to develop him and call him up to the big leagues. Right. Yeah, I mean, the options are slim. Ben Cowles will obviously could be put in a trade package, but he's not going to get you a full MLB return.
No, he'd be like the guy that, for example, like in the Soto deal, would be kind of like that 5th guy.
This is why I'm all of a sudden a little nervous about how much the Yankees can improve.
Yeah.
I think they can get some of these guys, but I just don't think the top end guys or the top names that we keep mentioning are gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like everyone keeps mentioning Jazz Chisholm from Miami. Like, do you know how much he's gonna take just to acquire him?
Yeah.
And the Yankees don't have a lot to work with. So say you give up a few good pieces for him, you still got to go out and get pitching. Who are you going to use to go acquire pitching?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Kyle, because I have 3 big league names that I think we need to keep an eye on for the Yankees. Begin with Trent Grisham. I don't know what he'd garner, but he's at least a big league level.
Value's gone up.
He's a big league ready bat, right? And he is for sure the odd man out in the outfield right now anyway with the Yankees.
Yeah.
The other person, again, don't know if really on this one anybody's going to really take the run, but, again, where does DJ LeMahieu exactly fit right now?
Get him off my team.
And here's the other one here where you mentioned who would bring in the pitching. This guy might.
Yeah.
Gleyber Torres.
Nah, he's got to go. I mean, how long can you keep continuing to go with him? You've played 95 games or whatever you've played. And you're still expecting him to turn it around? What is this just going to happen overnight?
Right.
I don't understand how long you can wait for your starting second baseman to contribute.
Right.
So yeah, I think for sure you have a good point. That's an option for pitching, and it seems like the Marlins have always loved him. So what could the Yankees get from the Marlins? I think we've already mentioned.
Yeah, the one name I didn't put on here for the Marlins that pitching wise maybe I should have. I just don't know if they will do it. Is Rodri Munoz. I don't think they're going to move him. I think that one's the definition of they might want like the Spencer Jones or say if you're the Mets, and it's funny I have them both talked about here, a couple talking points, but Drew Gilbert, Jet Williams, guys like that. So I would imagine that's what it might cost. All right, let's get to some roster updates here and kind of get everything moving and getting out of here. Mentioned Scott Efros. Reinstated from the IL, option to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Cody Morris, who was the player swap. You mentioned prospects, right, Kyle? Was the player swapped over with Esteban Florial with the Guardians. DFA to make room on the 40-man for him. Yorbi Vivas, option to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre, was called up for the Baltimore series with J.D. Davis going on the injured list with the stomach flu. He didn't see any action in the 3 games, so we didn't get to see him. But for him, probably a nice little probably a good thing to just at least get in the clubhouse for a brief moment and kind of experience that. Carl Stanton won't be ready to go tomorrow as maybe initially was hoped, but is really close per Aaron Boone, but they have yet to decide whether or not he will take any minor league reps. Like we mentioned last week and last year, only played in 1 minor league game anyway before getting recalled back up and reinstated off the injured list. It sounds like they're more confident this time around that he may not need him, but I can still imagine maybe for his own sake he'd probably maybe want just a couple of at-bats at speed in game action and get going right away.
Yeah, I think when he's ready, they should just activate him. I mean, he's only a DH anyways.
Yeah.
He just needs to get his at-bats up at the big league club, and his presence alone scares opposing pitchers.
Yeah.
Just having that name plugged in and that guy coming to the plate is a difference maker. We saw in the first half, him and Rizzo.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Rizzo, he is I don't know how to really word this right. I struggled in my notes to kind of how to phrase this right. Best way I could kind of come up with it was more or less just taken literally was right from the Yankees report on this, but restricted to only weight room activities and certain ones at that as he's recovering from the right forearm fracture as it stands right now.
Yeah, so just running.
Yeah, he said there's still a little bit of pain, with it, but when you fracture your right forearm, I'm imagining that would be the case. Not to make a laughing matter out of it, but kind of, I guess, implied in a way. Mention Jose Trevino a little bit here. Left quad strain, 10-day IL. Carlos Narvaez was recalled from AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre to take a spot on the active roster.
He'll never play.
This is where I kind of go back to that Jacob Stallings thing, for example, where it's like, if you're the Yankees, to me anyway, if you're the Yankees, you have to be sniffing for another catcher, I think, at the deadline. At least inquire about it. You know what I mean? These types of injuries, especially with catchers, tend to pop back up pretty frequently. So I don't know what the plan would be. I know Wells is playing better here as of late, but you know, you still can't be carrying just one catcher, obviously, or playing only one. You need to have a second back there. Don't know if Narvaez is the exact backup to have in place continuously should the injury play out super long for Trevino. But like I said, if you're the Yankees, I think you have to be sniffing around at the deadline on a couple guys at least for that number 2 catching position.
Yeah, I agree. And we saw Ben Rice back there for an inning, but it seems like the Yankees don't really want to play him back there.
Right.
So I guess he's in the emergency, obviously, though. But yeah, Narvaez, he's a left-handed bat just like Wells. Wells is going to play every day.
Yeah.
This guy is just going to be sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah. And then also, obviously, you mentioned Ben Rice being the emergency guy who left-handed bat anyway also.
Yeah.
So
So get a right-handed catcher.
Jacob Stallings is right-handed.
Yep.
I don't mean to I don't want that to be necessarily the guy I dislike Stallings for his defense. And I just view that as just an immediate defensive upgrade. I'm sorry.
And then you have Andy Martino yesterday calling for Martin Maldonado because he
God,
loved
no.
catching Garrett Cole, and Garrett Cole loves him catching him. So
Yeah,
let's a guy that can't even hit a freaking beach ball. Yeah, put him out
and his
there.
defense tanked this year. I don't think people realize that. His
Yeah.
defense was not good this year.
Yeah, pop time was different. Arm strength. Somebody put a screenshot out, so that's all I know. But yeah, that name is gone around. No thanks.
Yeah, I'm good.
Ass.
I'm good. A couple other last ones here. Ian Hamilton has resumed a throwing program, which is good to see. Kind of seems like he'll be back actually really sooner than later. And then we talked about this guy a little bit here the past couple weeks. JT Brubaker suffered an oblique injury fielding a ball with AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre, so he's shut down here for the next couple weeks. Looked all right at AAA. I don't know what to fully expect out of him. He's kind of the big mystery that we've been talking about a little bit here, and obviously now extended out. Don't know what his role will fully be down the stretch as opposed to maybe if this didn't happen. But, shut down for another couple weeks at least with this injury. Who knows? So.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to add at the deadline.
Yeah.
And obviously guys that are hurt are working their way back, as you mentioned, Ian Hamilton, even though he's still a ways away. And Scott Efros, I mean, I don't know if there's even a spot. I mean, there was going to be a spot, maybe now, but he's not going to be ready, so I don't know.
Yankees have a big series to open up the second half of the year. As we mentioned, it's a 4-game set with the Rays over the weekend. The Rays, as we mentioned, probably not as good as they have been, obviously, in years past. Proverbial sellers at the deadline for sure this time around. Still can't take this team lightly because, God forbid, the Yankees ever deal with them in a proper fashion for the most part.
Yeah, somehow they have a winning record.
Which is pretty funny because, like we mentioned last week for you to me, Kyle, how, they do have a winning record against them this year, but
it's not great, 5-4.
What in the past 8 years has given me confidence that the Yankees will be able to maintain that? For the Yankees' sake, I thought they rebounded really well against Baltimore. I would probably take just a straight 2-2 split with the Rays at this point this weekend. Especially, the 2 games after that are the Subway Series and the Bronx. So I think you can get a couple against the Rays to go into that series against the Mets. I wouldn't be opposed, to put it that way. Maybe not the best way to view it, but kind of take what you can get in my mind and move on. I do like what the Yankees are doing, though, to coming out of the break. They're going with, what they perceive to be their 1, 2, 3, 4 out of this rotation and going with them right away. Obviously, Cole going tomorrow. So, I kind of like how that sets up in a way and how they're just going to kind of at least try and attack it head on to get the second half going.
Yeah, and they're giving Luis Gil extra rest. We won't see him in the series. So, yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a split. I don't like the split. I think they need 3 of 4, especially because how bad their AL East record is. They're, 13-18 or something?
Yeah.
They got to start winning these division games, and they have a lot of them coming up. So, yeah, take care of business. You're at home, too. Nestor pitches great at home. You got to win these games. I really think 3 of 4 is a must, honestly.
So before we get to the Mets, Kyle, I do have a Yankee stat to give you. See if you can get it. Stat of the day. It's a 2-parter. Top 10 for Yankees in WAR this year. Aaron Judge is number 1. right? He's at a 6 WAR.
Yep.
Juan Soto, number 2 at a 5 WAR. Who is number 3 for Yankees in WAR this year?
Ooh, number 3.
Yep.
Is it going to be a surprise?
Yes and no.
Left-handed bat?
Not a bat pitcher.
Oh. There's no way it's Luis Gil.
It is Luis Gil. This is the
Even
drop.
after those bad outings?
This is the drop off on it though. Soto, as I mentioned, was number 2 with a 5 flat WAR. Gil's is a 2.5. Now, this is where I want to do this. The 10th best Yankee WAR this year.
It's going to be somebody bad.
This one is a very big surprise. It's a positive WAR. It's a 1.0.
A bat?
It's a 1.0. No, it's another pitcher.
Starter?
No.
Well, I don't know where Clay Holmes ranks, but I don't think he'd be 10th. That's too far, isn't it?
It's too low for Clay. Yeah.
Oh, man. Is it left-hander?
No. It's a righty. I'm afraid if I give you any more clues, you will get it. That's the
I
main
don't
issue with it.
know.
Because it is a little bit, it is surprising.
Michael Tonkin?
It is Michael Tonkin.
No way.
Yep.
Oh, my God. The guy got DFA'd 4 times.
That's right.
And he comes to the Yankees, and he's just a totally different guy.
He should have been the pitching all-star.
If he started
not a knock on Clay Holmes. I don't want to knock Clay Holmes like that, but
What are your thoughts on him not getting into the game, even though Bruce Bochy said he was going to get everyone in the game?
I mean, it's easier said than done.
He let Clase get all 3 outs when he was splitting up the innings.
I don't want to be that guy, but I would too.
Yeah, I know, but he was just splitting up the innings a lot in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and then he's like, Clase, go get 3 outs. Clay Holmes, you're not pitching.
I don't mind it.
I don't mind it, but I think it's funny. He shouldn't have been there anyways.
Look, you know this, so it's not meant to be directed at you, but I think a lot of people. It's one of the things I saw on like Twitter, for example. If you didn't know, the managers talk to the other managers, and like, if they don't want a pitcher to go, sometimes like the all-star manager won't put the pitcher in. Like, it's not all that deep, people, sometimes. Because I saw people for a certain National League pitcher were like upset that he didn't get in. I'm like, it's very possible that the team told him not to pitch him, just in case.
And what was it? Christopher Sanchez, I think, threw 2 pitches, got 2 outs, and then
Correct.
Torrey
They
was
brought
like,
in Ronaldo.
yeah, Torrey was like, you got to go. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
they understand it's an all-star game.
Yeah.
What it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to the Mets. Kodai Senga, AAA appearance for Syracuse on Saturday, 4 2/3, a run, 2 hits, and 3 strikeouts. Next start, TBA, and that one is because will he get one more start at AAA, or will it be back with the big league club? Decisions for the Mets, but he has looked really good in these rehab outings, and his return is very imminent at this point.
Yeah, they need him back. That's a good arm. As Michael Kay usually says, that's a great trade deadline acquisition, even though he's already on the team.
There it is. Yeah.
People mock him for that.
I unfortunately kind of view the same way, though, in some ways. Sorry. Eric Orsi, option to AAA Syracuse. Sean Reed Foley. We'll throw a bullpen session tomorrow, or live batting practice. If it's the bullpen session, it'll be his third as he kind of builds back a return here from the injured list. Starling Marte improving from that bone bruise in his right knee, but not near 100% per Carlos Mendoza. Kind of a name to still watch at the deadline, I think, maybe, for the Mets, but you never know. Reed Garrett got imaging back on his right elbow. There's no structural damage, so that's a pretty big boost for him, and expect to see a ramp-up of activities in the coming days for him. Mentioned Drew Gilbert earlier. He's returned to action. He joined the Florida Complex League Mets as he rehabs back. He's one of the top prospects for the Mets. Came over in the Verlander trade last year. So big things out of him. And then Drew Smith had a successful Tommy John surgery last week, the second of his career. Also an internal brace was added during that surgery as well. So obviously, as we know, done for the year, done for a pretty good portion of next year as well. But good to see that surgery went well for Drew Smith. The Mets head to Miami for 4 games this weekend. Pretty big games for the Mets. Obviously a very beatable opponent. They have not yet to announce their pitching rotation for the series. I kind of imagine they'll go. I have to approach this as if not looking that Kodai Senga is going to be back necessarily, unfortunately, as it stands right now, which means kind of when we get out of here, which means news will break that Senga will be starting tomorrow. But either way, probably would go Severino game one, maybe. I don't know. I'd go Severino, I think, that tomorrow night for game one of that series. I'd go probably Peterson number 2. He looked really good in that first, I guess, really only start coming back before the paternity list. So congratulations to him, but he's back as well. So I guess that'd probably be the 1-2 punch the Mets go with for those first 2 games. But either way, 3 of 4, I think Miami for the Mets get out there and go back up to New York and play Yankees and Yankee Stadium for a Subway Series midweek next week. I think that'd be a pretty good check mark for the Mets in their quest to get a really good footing in the wild card race.
Yeah, they pretty much, did what they're supposed to do against the Rockies before the All-Star break. And this is what you need to do against the Marlins. You got to take 3 or 4 minimum, but I do think a sweep is very, very likely because of how well they've been playing. And, it's the Marlins. Their pitching is just crazy bad. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'll say 3 or 4, but I wouldn't be surprised about a sweep.
Yeah. No, likewise, same way. Just a quick touch on here before we got here for the AAA teams. Rochester's still atop the AAA standings. They've done really super well. Syracuse, they sit 2 games back of the Red Wings, so it'd be nice to have, like we mentioned last week, be really nice to have a AAA battle right in our own backyard here down the stretch. Rochester in Syracuse this weekend for a 3-game series starting tomorrow. And then the Rochester Red Wings return home for the first time in 2 weeks against Lehigh Valley next week. Syracuse will be hitting the road and heading to Buffalo for the week. So good stuff there. Kind of have mentioned a ton here, but if you can get to those games, go and do it. Got a lot of good prospects on both these teams now. Future of both the Mets and the Nationals in our own backyards. Hard to not take advantage of it on nice weather days like we've been having outside of, I'd say, 1 day a week, the past couple weeks, Kyle, where we just have sit in tornado warnings and prayed that everything would come out good on the other side.
Speaking of the minor leagues quick, what's going on with the Buffalo Bisons? They're usually pretty good. Toronto's bad and Buffalo's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's rare to see.
That roster's had a lot of turnover, I've noticed, between AA and AAA. So.
And you expect the Blue Jays to be busy at the deadline, probably selling. Yeah. Not really sure about the top guys, but definitely at some point. I see Trevor Richards mentioned.
Yeah.
A lot of guys. IKF was mentioned today. People are saying Yankees. I'm like, nah, I'm good. He had his time there.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind it. He was a trooper the past couple of years, but I go back to the same with Toronto, man. It's the same thing with Tampa Bay. I just don't see them doing in division with the Yankees unless no matter what, it's like IKF or Spencer Jones, and I just don't think either side's being realistic on that one. You know what I mean? So,
thoughts if Vladdy went to Houston? Obviously,
it'd be a pretty good fit, to be honest with you.
Do you think it puts Houston, though, kind of back as one of the favorites in the AL?
I don't.
Because their pitching's getting better.
Yeah, I don't know. The AL West has just been a tough gauge so far this year for me, man. It enters them back in the conversation that you would have to at least take them seriously. Yes. You know what I mean?
Seattle had a pretty good lead, and Houston got hot, and Seattle can't hit.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they're just 1 game above them.
Yeah.
And I expect the Astros now to win the division because that's just how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, hey, and that's the purpose of what we were talking about today, guys. It's going to be a pretty important week stretch here coming into the deadline for literally every team in the big leagues except for a handful of them. So
here's one: the Tigers. They're 7 out of the wild card. It's not looking great. You think they sell?
So I know why you're asking this because of the Scooble rumors.
And it makes me think of
Gio. I think they would sell certain guys, but Gio would probably be one of those guys. But
crazy thing is they're only 3 games under.
I can't see them selling. I can't see unless it's an offer that really blows them. You have to take it, or else you're just dumb out of principle. But why would they want to move Scooble? He's your ace of the future. He's young. I don't see it. It's a lot kind of like I'd say the Nationals in a way. Like, why would you want to trade away Mackenzie Gore right now? Like, nobody's saying that, but people are bringing up the Tarek Skubal thing. Like, that doesn't make much sense to me. So, I can see. I think guys like Gio would probably be more of that bill where it's like, yeah, more than one to kind of probably part with him just for the sake of, he probably doesn't really fit what they got going for next year in years down the road necessarily. So, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to Gio back in New York. I can tell you that much for sure.
Yeah, same here. So, this is a random question before you go out. Would you rather be dealing with the DJ LeMahieu we're seeing this year or the Josh Donaldson of last year? Because they're both very bad.
Yeah,
But I guess maybe you take DJ because at least he puts it in play more.
I guess.
But then Josh has the power. They got to upgrade no matter what.
There's a couple ways to look at it. Like LeMahieu gives you a little bit more versatility too.
True.
In the field.
But Gio has to be the last
Yeah.
reliable third baseman they've had, which is crazy to say because they have not got a lot of production. Oswaldo Cabrera had, a hot start there, but he has fallen off a ton because he doesn't get playing time.
Gio was, and that was all of 2 years ago.
Yep.
Since then it's been a little bit of figure it out. I mean, again, it's tough, but like when he was healthy, you could make the case of LeMahieu, but like you said, it's the reliability of it. So you gotta go with Gio.
Yeah, I honestly think what they're going to do is they're just going to get John Birdie back and have him go out there and consistently play, and they're set with it.
Yeah.
But I don't think they can do that. I think no matter what, you got to get an infielder that can play anywhere in the infield.
Yeah. So
12 days away.
Yeah, 12 days away. We'll probably talk obviously a little bit more about next week, but next week full slate of games. We'll be back with that next week. Kyle, enjoy the weekend. Take this last night of one last deep breath in before everything gets back going again on a full slate.
Yeah, and how about this training camp, NFL training camp next week?
You going up at all?
I don't think so. I might not.
Yeah, I saw them setting up. I've seen them putting stuff up the past couple weeks up to going up to baseball and stuff. So, yeah, like I said, I'll be here before you know it. So, with that in mind, we'll sign off. We'll talk with everybody next week.